Hello and welcome to the very first FascinatingExperiments.com podcast. My name's John Purcell and the theme of this podcast is changing your life. We're going to be discussing ideas and things you can do that will radically change your life. And I'm going to be talking, at least at first, from my own experience, and I'm going to try to give you practical information about things you can do that will have a big impact on your lifestyle and the way you live. So we're going to be talking about a range of different subjects. I may even have guests on in the future. And initially, though, I'm going to stick to my own experience, and we're going to be talking about things like making money through the internet, or making money just in real life, not through the internet, and how you can do things that require no initial startup costs or very, very minimal costs. And we're going to look at things that you can, as much as possible, kind of pretty much just step into, rather than having to set up some kind of an elaborate business plan or kind of study a new skill for years. We're going to look at things that hopefully anyone can do, or that most people could do, and that you could just go into, and that it would alter your life completely in a good way. I'm going to be talking about living abroad and different countries you could go to, and the advantages of doing that, or the possible advantages, and how you can go about it and what to expect. And we'll also talk about stuff like exercise and meditation and positive thinking and visualization, things that can really impact your life in a massive way, and that have really helped me in a massive way, and that you might not immediately think of if you're kind of dissatisfied with your life, but things that can actually hugely change the way you live and the way you feel. In the next podcast in this series, I'm going to be talking about living in a tent, which is a kind of radical solution to being dissatisfied with your existing lifestyle. That's not going to be right for everyone, but it's something that I did for actually a year and 3 months, and it was a really fantastic experience. And I want to share with you the practicalities of living in a tent. And even if you're not interested in living in a tent, then hopefully you'll find it interesting and amusing. So in the future, I may well have guests on this podcast, because I'm interested in other people's experiences and what kind of range of things people have done to change their lives. And I'm certainly not the only one who's done a few radical and crazy things with my life. And it would really be good to get other people's experiences too. I'm also going to be showcasing some free music just to spice things up a bit. I think a lot of people these days are kind of complaining about all these huge industrial music publishers taking over music and selling their music for really high prices, and marketing music that some of us feel is a kind of bit meaningless. And of course these days they're getting into suing people for downloading music, when it's the most natural thing in the world to share music. I'm not kind of suggesting anyone should violate copyright. Sharing music is a natural impulse, and for that reason I'm going to be showcasing in every podcast a great piece of music that's been released under a Creative Commons license, and that you can download and listen to absolutely for free. The format of this particular episode is going to be a bit different to the usual format, because I'm not going to go into any particular life-changing thing in this first episode. What I am going to do is, I just wanted to introduce myself and introduce the podcast. And I also want to tell you a little bit about myself and my background and my story, so that you'll kind of see where I'm coming from with this podcast. I actually got into a career a long time ago. It's 14, 15 years ago now, that I didn't like. When I was like 22, I was just really shy and introverted, And back then I needed to get a job that didn't really involve talking to people, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know, I needed to pay my rent, I needed to have money, and I had to do something. And I got into computer programming. And now I am kind of interested in programming computers, and this is something that I would do in my spare time, and I do in my spare time now that I don't have to work for other people anymore. But back then I got into this career for all the wrong reasons, and from the very first day I hated it. And I continued to hate working for other people and working in an office for all the time that I did it, which was in the region of 14 years. It's 14 years of getting up every day, hating my life, hating my job, and just being really depressed and unhappy and feeling trapped. And also losing respect for myself, because I kind of felt that I could do all kinds of things, and I kind of felt that life was full of potential, and I had in my head all kinds of amazing things that could be done in life. You know, I had that example in my head of people like Einstein and fictional people like Indiana Jones, and I was thinking, wow, you can do amazing things in life. But here I was getting up every day, going to an office and sitting there and doing stuff that I didn't want to do all day. In fact, I was usually doing stuff that I didn't want to do at all, really. And I really kind of lost respect for myself. I thought, you know, I've been given this chance, I've been given this life, this enormous chance to do things, and I'm just wasting it doing stuff that I don't want to do. Life was really passing me by. And over that 14 years, I tried one thing after another to escape from that life and to do something better and more interesting. I've kind of forgotten a lot of the things that I did, but let's just say over the past, let's say since I was 21, some of the things I've tried have been, well, I lived in a tent for more than a year, and I was writing a book when I was in the tent, trying to get that published. I've actually written 4 books, and I couldn't get any of them published, and my heart was not really in writing any of them. I was writing these books thinking, if only I could write a good book that would get published, I could escape from the inevitability of working for other people, and I could be my own person. But it just didn't happen for me, for reasons that, looking back, are now pretty clear to me. So I lived in a tent. I wrote 4 books in total, and quite sizable books as well, 3 novels and a non-fiction book. I tried selling plants for a living. I was growing plants, these kind of sensitive plants that their leaves fold up when you touch them, which I thought was intriguing. And I tried to make a living selling those, and it just didn't go anywhere at all. I also tried to make a living selling art, and even though I'm really bad at drawing, like if I draw, for example, a figure, my drawing comes out looking like something maybe a 9-year-old would draw, or possibly even an 8-year-old, something like that. But nevertheless, I did sell paintings, and I was churning them out pretty fast. My best one sold for 76 UK pounds. But I was spending so much on posting these things, and I was buying huge canvases and painting on those. And I was paying eBay listings, and of course you have to buy paints and stuff like that. That by the time I'd finished selling these things, on the whole I was making a loss, and again my heart wasn't in it. And all the time I was doing these things, I was doing a job that I hated, which just dragged me down and made me feel horribly depressed and demotivated and exhausted. And none of these things panned out. I would always lose enthusiasm with all of them eventually. I also tried making music, and actually a DJ actually played my music on a local radio station, and she said that she really liked it. And thank you very much, Jay Melbourne, and I'll always be really grateful for you to you for playing my music. But, I used to be a really shy person, and eventually this DJ said to me, give me a call and let's talk about your music. And she was going to do a press release, and she was getting producers interested and this kind of thing. And I couldn't call this DJ. I didn't have the self-confidence, and I just blew that opportunity completely. And also the exhaustion of my job was kicking in. And when you're really exhausted and depressed, you can't really get anything done. Everything you do tends to fail. I tried learning foreign exchange trading, and that's where you buy currency, you buy foreign currency, and at the right moment you sell it, you exchange it into another currency, and if you do it right, you make a profit. But what usually happens for beginners, especially for the first few years, is that you make a loss, and I just lost money rapidly with that, actually. I didn't have the discipline or the emotional stability or the interest in it to succeed, and I was forcing myself to study currency trading, and pretty much every evening for 2 years I forced myself to study forex trading and also share trading, but I just could not make it work. My emotional state wasn't right, and I now realise that forex is very, very difficult. It's one of the more difficult ways that you can make money, actually, at least if you're trying to do it on a shoestring, which I was. I also tried writing software and selling it. I tried to write games and sell games, and I tried to write software that could predict the stock market. This is a separate thing to my learning currency trading and stock trading the normal way. And a different time I tried to write software that could predict the stock market and hopefully make a profit, and that just didn't work. It was an incredibly hard task, and I was just so stressed doing it, because I was all the time I was thinking, if this doesn't work, I've got to stay working in the office. That kind of doomed it to failure in itself, and my heart again just wasn't in it. So I tried a huge array of things to get out of my job and do something different, and none of them worked, and I never had the real kind of motivation that you need to make them succeed. And then finally, in the last 2 years that I worked, which was actually in Holland, I got this job that I hated so much. I was almost cracking up under the strain. I was having problems with my back. I had to sit on a chair all day, and a nurse actually said to me, "You mustn't sit on a chair." But my job consisted in sitting on chairs, and I would have days when I couldn't walk. Literally, my back was going into spasms, and it was kind of funny in a way. It was comically awful, and worse things happen at sea, But I think if I'd carried on in that job, I could have ended up being semi-crippled, really. I don't know. It was getting worse and worse. And my stress levels were rising because my job in itself wasn't stressful, but the boredom was stressful. And the feeling that life was passing me by was stressful. And I was getting into a kind of a worse and worse state mentally. And I reached a point finally where I thought, I'm either going to get out of this job or I'm going to die. I'm going to die if I stay in this job. And I hated it so much. And it was that kind of realization that pushed me to really commit myself to doing something different. And then what I did after that, I'm going to explain in future podcasts. And it was stressful and a little bit traumatic at first. But I started to live in tune with myself, at least as regards making money, because I'm definitely not someone who's got life all sorted out. But the difference between my life now and how it was then is like the difference between night and day. And I get up in the morning now and I think, great, this is a new day. And I used to get up in the morning and think, oh God, it's a new day. So I've successfully made a big change. And my sheer dislike of the job that I had was a major factor in forcing me to commit to changing things. And then following that, I did 3 things, and every one of them, one after the other, succeeded. And I could have made a living off any one of them. I'm on thing number 3 now, and I'm just so excited about all the things that I'm gonna do and all the things that I'm working on and all the different ways that it's possible to make a living. And because I've actually gone into training people in computer programming, but I've also done other stuff as well, not related to computers, which I'll talk about. And I've seen a lot of people who are in the same position that I was, in that they're not happy where they are and they don't really know how to change. And actually a lot of them want to get into computer programming, which is ironic because I'm telling them how to get into it, and yet I wanted to get out of it, but because I've seen so many people in this position of being dissatisfied with their lives, I started to think what I should do is I should put together all the information that I've learned about what to do to change your life and about what not to do to change your life into a podcast, and it may help other people, and I'll certainly enjoy doing it because I just love talking and I love creating kind of videos, and this is my first podcast actually, but I think it's going to be really good and I'm really excited about it. So join me again for the next episode, and we're going to be talking there about, as I say, living in a tent, and I'm going to be telling you about how and why I moved into a tent and how I lived in a tent for 1 year and 3 months, and I'll be talking about the practicalities of that and how you can do that if you want to do it, and what you need to think about and what you need to consider, and how you need to approach it emotionally as well, because that's a major part of doing something as radical for most of us as living in a tent. And of course, in future podcasts, we're going to be discussing stuff that's a lot more practical for most people, because most people are not going to want to live in a tent, but hopefully it'll be entertaining. So that's it for this first podcast. Thank you for joining me for the very first FascinatingExperiments.com podcast. And you can find more information about this podcast at FascinatingExperiments.com. And I'm going to leave you with a fantastic piece of music. And this is called Illumination, featuring Emmalyne Braswell. And this is released on the Creative Commons license. And this is a piece of music by Action Davis. Apparently that's his name, Action Davis. Whether that's his real name or her real name, I don't know. But it's a really great piece of music. So join me again next time, and until then, peace out.
So thick I could choke, and so afraid that